It's time now for Ask Mike and Todd. You guys can get involved. Send us a text, 609-403-0973. You guys want to send a question our way, we'll chew on it. But first, let's get into the Last Dance Jordan documentary. Now, PT didn't even watch it last night. I know you saw it. In fact, you texted me. You believed it was the greatest documentary of all time.
Well, let me tell you, it's good to talk with you today. I hope you had a good weekend. Well, I mean, it's disgraceful that Pete Thompson did not watch that. I mean,
Absolutely. He was watching Fight Club instead.
Oh, come on. You can watch that any day of the week.
Come on is right. Any day.
Can I tell you, I told you I was excited about that documentary. I've only seen 2 hours now. We've got 8 more to go. And, man, that did not disappoint. Oh, I'll tell you what. And, again, a lot of it I already knew. It's just reminiscing. It's nostalgic. But there was some really good stuff in those first 2 hours. Some things that I didn't really know about. I didn't do the digging and the research back when we were younger. But, you know, my thought and yours was, too, the younger generation, right, who just hears about Jordan, this gives them a chance, if they choose to watch and really see how great this guy was. And it was a lot of fun to kind of go down memory lane yesterday.
It was, and, you know, I guess, you know, some of the things, the whole Jerry Krause aspect of it, I mean, first off, I just want to make this clear, that a West Virginia alum drafted Michael Jordan. Jerry Krause does not get that honor. He was not the guy who picked Jordan, but you got to give him credit for the moves he made afterwards, and it's because, you know, he's a short guy who's a little heavy set. I feel like his appearance makes him an easy target for he did a good job. He got Jordan Pippen. He made the trade of Oakley, which wasn't easy. He got all the right pieces around him. I mean, other than drafting Jordan, which was Rod Thorne, I thought Krause was really made out to be a bad guy in this thing. And I guess a lot of it has been said that he brought it on himself, but he did a good job.
Well, and again, we got 8 more hours. Maybe they revisit Krause a little bit as we go later on in this documentary. But I will say this. I agree with you in that the parts that he played and the pieces that he put together were great, right? And we all, I think everybody would agree with that. The problem you get, and I don't know if you want to go to the physical appearance as far as a little man syndrome or whatever, regardless of that, the reality is he had an ego, and that's really what was his demise. And so the beginning of his time in the Bulls, you're right, he did make great moves. It was great. But what you see is the ego got bigger than the body could fit. And then he starts making moves like he's playing chess, and he didn't have to make any moves. He won. The game was over. Just leave the game on the board. It's over. And he wanted to keep making moves, and I think that's where you get. What I didn't know, though, Gil, is that Jordan didn't like Krause early on, and a lot of filled in. I didn't realize early on there was still a little bit of tension early in that whole relationship, and it just grew over the years. I didn't realize that part of it, but you start to see that was a really cancerous environment from the players, and then the gap between the players and the management, the front office. And it's a shame, really, because we're watching as fans and we see this team play, and yet you really didn't have that kind of a clue as to what was going on. I mean, it was evident that last year. I mean, that Krause came out, and he just said, "Yeah, this is Phil's last year." Before the season
yeah, right.
started.
Why would he say that? You could go 82-0, and you're not coming back. I mean, that's an idiotic thing to say.
Well, and that's where you're going to get the backlash, right? That's where you're going to get people go, "I'm sorry, as much credit as I want to give him, it's asinine to sit there and tell a 5-time NBA champion head coach, I don't care what you do for me this year, you're done." And again, ego gets into play. They were talking about how he befriended Tim Floyd and he wanted his guy in there. Whatever the case may be, that really was unfortunate, because you've talked about it with me. I've talked with Pete G offline. The reality of this team is they really could have probably, and this also goes into Jordan playing baseball, but if he didn't play baseball, this team legitimately could have won probably 9 in a row. If we look at it, 2 in the baseball years, and then maybe 1 more after they won the last one. If the team would have stayed together, they add a couple more pieces, you know?
Yeah, I think definitively if he doesn't leave for baseball, they probably win the 2 the year the Rockets win, right?
I mean, it's hard to say. Again, it's hypothetical, but man, it's hard to say that they would have let up at any point.
Then he comes back, and they don't win the 1 year when he comes back. He only plays like 17 games that year. The year after that, though, they win 3 more. So the last one they win is 98. So after that, he plays those 2 years with Washington, and you wonder, all right, if they would have brought Jordan, Pippen, and those guys all back together, would they have won again? I mean, Jordan was still pretty good those 2 years with the Wizards, but he was clearly not Michael Jordan.
No. And again, people can say, well, as a GM, you're trying to make your team better. You've got to look at it. You've got to look at players getting older. You look at the Patriots. They get rid of Brady in the sense of how many more years do we get out of him? But I just feel like you had the best player in the world. Still,
well, what Jordan said at the beginning, when he said, if you're the champion, you wait till somebody knocks us off before you break us up.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Look at the Warriors. The Warriors, when they won the championship, they didn't get rid of anybody. They added Kevin Durant. You think about that team and that they won the championship. They didn't lose their pieces. They gained another great piece. The Bulls were the market that everybody wanted to play for, Gil. You could get any of those veteran guys that would fit into perfect pieces. They all wanted to come to Chicago. So that's really the frustration is, maybe you lose Rodman. I don't know. Maybe Rodman says, I'm done. Well, you go find another beat-up guy that comes in and just says, I'm going to get underneath the boards, and I don't care. I don't need to get the ball. You can find those pieces. To just break it up and get rid of – it was – at the time, I remember just being sick to my stomach that it was going on like that. But – it was an interesting story. There were other pieces to it last night that were really cool layers. I know next week it's going to be focused on Rodman, which I'm excited about because, I had his sneakers. I was a big Rodman guy. So, it'll be fun. But I just thought it was really fun to watch last night. Did you see some of the tweets coming out of today's NBA players afterwards?
Well, yeah. And it's funny because I'm watching it last night with my girlfriend's son. He's 14. And you texted that I hope these young guys are watching this, and I'm watching with a kid 14, and right when it was done, he said, LeBron's still the best. I said, well, right, you just didn't capture the essence of what you just watched then.
Well, this is my problem. Again, we're at 2 different time periods, and everybody can understand that. The game is played so ridiculously different today.
Right.
And one of those reasons is Steph Curry. Steph Curry changed the game.
Right. And it's not about who's a better, more talented guy. It's that killer instinct that was the difference maker for me. LeBron might be physically more gifted. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. That's not what it's about to me. It's 6 times in, 6 championships, 6 MVPs. Jordan doesn't lose a series against the Dallas Mavericks on a hand-picked team that he put together. If Jordan hand-picked his team, you better be damn sure he wasn't losing to a inferior Mavericks team. It's just those little things that swing it one way. And there was a time when you and I were doing the show, and both of us were pretty tough on LeBron. I have eased back on LeBron a lot. I think he has proven a lot and grown a lot from his first run in Cleveland to the Miami years. That second run in Cleveland, I kind of turned on him as, all right, he's grown and learned from mistakes, but still not on the level of where Jordan was mentally.
Well, and what Jordan did to change the game. He went into a team, and again, he didn't handpick his team, right? He came with the players he got. Him and Pippen became the 1-2.
Well, right, and the fact of the matter is, he didn't get along with the front office and stuff there, and he stayed and stuck through it. Whereas LeBron's out of here and went and handpicked his team, and it took him a couple of years before that handpicked team finally won. They won 2 down there. But that first year they lost to that Dallas team when they had the lead in that series. That was that loss will almost be the one that hammers the Jordan people to the Jordan side against the, because if he beats the Mavericks there, then he has 4, and maybe they win against the Spurs that 1 year. But losing to the Mavericks, I think, really puts the cloud over him.
Well, and it's hard because he is a great player. Look, come on, he's one of the top 2 or 3 players of all time, probably. And like you said, you break it down to what you like. A lot of people say, well, he's such a passer of the game, and he passed it around, and it's such a different type of player. I agree with you on the killer instinct. I think Jordan and Kobe are the 2. I think, Kobe was in essence a clone of Michael Jordan. And so those two guys were a different breed. They functioned differently. It's funny because I heard that Jordan was a little worried about this documentary coming out because he said, I think people are going to not like me or going to kind of look at me and go, man, he wasn't a great guy or whatever. I thought quite the contrary. And again, I know there's 8 more hours to watch. This guy was dedicated to winning, and it ticked him off when he lost, and he made it better every day. And he wanted to beat you every day.
I love the scene where they're in Paris, and I forget. I think it was Jason Caffey who was, wanted to give him a hug. He hugged Harper, and then he said, "Hey, Michael, give me a hug." And Michael looked at him like, "Dude, are you kidding me? We just beat the team from Paris."
He said, "You haven't done anything yet. What are you talking about?"
Right. I had talked about that on Friday, that he was concerned about his image after that it was going to make him look. I said, no, that's why the people think that you're great, is because of the way you acted, that you didn't. Now, there was some people complaining about the fact that he played golf with Ainge and about that whole story about how, hey, you wouldn't fraternize with the opponent. And, the fact that he played golf with Ainge in the middle of a playoff series. There was a lot of criticism about that.
Well, it's funny because we don't know about that, right? Back then, you didn't know. Today, there'll be Instagrams of LeBron playing golf. So you're right. I mean, but I wouldn't even. But the funny part is, you can criticize if you want. But what happened in Game 2? He goes for 63, and they take him to double overtime. So again, I get it. They're saying, well, back in the day, it was more you didn't have friends on the other team. Well, that shows a little bit of, yes, there were friendships on other teams, but there was still that killer instinct when he came back and they told that story.
Yep.
And it says, hey, look, tell Danny he's got something coming to him tomorrow night. Well, and sure enough, he shows up and produces, right?
Right. All right, Coco, we got like 2 minutes left. The way that he kind of told Pippen, you should have been out there. I mean, it's easy for him to say he's making $30 million and Pippen's gotten $2.5 million, but Jordan essentially said, look, you signed that contract. You knew you weren't getting that thing done. You should have rehabbed that ankle.
Well, and as a teammate, I can understand his words saying you're acting selfish. But if he looks at the full picture, Pippen was about the most unselfish guy in the NBA. I mean, look, he wanted to take care of his family. He's got his dad and his brother in wheelchairs. He's got a family of 12 or 14.
Well, right, that's the thing. He was kind of crippled to make that decision. He had to.
Right. He says, look, if I get injured in year one.
But that's where Krause was getting made out to be a bad guy. But he's like, look, I got this guy on a great deal. Why am I going to give this up?
Well, and the difference back then, Gil, is that there were never renegotiations.
Right, exactly. And that stuff didn't get out on social media. You didn't have people going on Twitter saying, pay the guy. I mean, today, for God's sakes, you got Ngakoue for the Jaguars blasting the owner on Twitter, and then the owner responded to him on tweets.
I mean, that just didn't happen back then.
No.
I mean, you can't renegotiate, and that was the issue. And look, it was shameful by Krause and the ownership that when you know you got the second best player, you don't have to give him a huge increase, but you darn well should give him a raise.
In today's standards, that would never happen.
What's that?
Today's standards, you would never have that level of player on that deal. Never.
Well, that player would sit. He would literally not play on your team. Well, he would force your hand to trade him because he would sit there and go, you got to pay me more, even though the contract says, no, you're supposed to play for this.
Oh, man.
Pippen got burned in that regard. Now, again, he made money after that contract. Don't get me wrong.
By the way, he made more money in his NBA career than Jordan did.
Long-term for the entire career.
Right. Over the course of his career, he made over $122 million, which was more than Jordan made over his NBA. I sent you that text today. His wife put it out there. She said, oh, we're okay. He made more than Jordan did anyway.
Well, you know why? Because there was that, I don't know what the year was.
Well, he went to the Rockets, and then he ended up in Portland.
But it was the big spike in all the contracts and the money for the players.
Correct.
So Jordan was pre that. Pippen was more
Jordan made about
right?
$30 million like his last couple of years, But before he before he got that big $30 million, he wasn't making all that. Like at 84, 85, we were talking earlier with Mitch Lawrence, who covered the league back then. He was saying, guys weren't making any money back in 84, 85. Like there was nothing.
No, Jordan was the entire league. Yeah. So of course, Jordan was underpaid too. Don't get me wrong, because his emblem should be replaced or it should be, Jerry West should be replaced. I mean, Jordan was the NBA back then.
Yeah.
His name was bigger than the name NBA at that time.
All right, it's Ask Mike and Todd. We do it at 5:30. You guys can get involved. Send your text 609-403-0973. We'll do it again tomorrow. Another edition of Ask Mike and Todd in the books. All right, man.
All right, buddy. I'm excited for next Sunday.
Well, of course, they get you for 5 more. All right, see you.